in this video I'm going to demonstrate how to get started with your IDS HYYP modem. I'm going to tell you what this does and how to use it. In the box you're going to get the HYYP modem itself, a little power supply, USB cable, and the wireless antenna. This is actually for a broadband connection, cellular connection. There are some nylon wall plugs and the associated screws just in case you want to install this on a wall. Here is the AC adapter. It happens to be a 12 volt 2.6 amp output, and there you can see the connection. And what you do is you're going to plug that in at the top there. You're going to screw in the little antenna, and your USB connection is going here at the bottom. Now this side has to be connected to your PC via the USB connection. Okay, before I get started explaining how you connect this up to your computer, I just want to tell you what this is for. Many people are getting confused with what a HYYP modem is. Now, in order for you to configure your X series panels or your IDS panels, in the old days you would use something called an IDS USB panel interface cable, one of these, and what you would do is you would connect this to your laptop and this to the serial port on your panel. So this meant that you had to be at the particular site where you wanted to do your configuring of the panel. Now this still works, there's nothing wrong with this, and if this is for your own alarm system or maybe you're an installer, this is a great thing to have because you can just, once you've set up the alarm, instead of configuring it via the keypad, which is very time consuming, you can just plug this into the main panel itself and to your laptop, and using the IDS Swift software you can then configure the panel. But what happens if you want to do it remotely? What does remotely mean? I mean from a different location. Maybe you want to do it from your office, maybe you want to do it from the control room, maybe you're an alarm company and the user says to you, I want to change some names, or I want to add some codes, or I want to make some changes to my alarm configuration. Well, you can do this from your desk at a different location completely, which means you do not have to come to site. This only works if you have the associated HYYP module or the Wi-Fi module that is connected at your panel, and I'll show you what I'm talking about now. Right, this is the HYYP Connect module, and this needs to be connected directly to your panel. This happens to be the Ethernet version. You can get one that is wireless, which will connect to a Wi-Fi network in your site, at your site. Alright, this is what it looks like when it's at the panel. You can see it's there on the left. There's the IP Connect, and it plugs in directly to the panel via that little serial port on the main panel. Right, now you've seen the other prerequisite for this to work, i.e. the other module which is connected to the panel. And if you do not know how to set that up, please check out my video on how to set the IP module to the video, whether it's wireless or IP. It's the same methodology. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to set this up to a computer, and then I'm going to walk you through it step by step how to get this thing to work. I'll also tell you some of the challenges I've had in order to get this guy to work. But before I do that, I just want to show you what's inside, because that will make sense when I'm explaining the rest of the video. Right, now I've unscrewed these screws. I just popped the top, and you'll see inside you have a circuit board, really a broadband board. And what you should immediately see is there is a SIM card there. Now, why do you think there's a SIM card there? Well, that is because this has a broadband connection, meaning that once you connect this to your computer, you're not linking to your alarm panel directly. You are going via the internet. Then from the HYYP control room or their servers in a remote location, I'm not sure where that is, maybe it's at IDS head office, maybe it's somebody's offering it, they outsource that service, they will then connect to your panel via your IP module that is next to your panel, and they will give them the ability to send and receive data. So if you have a look inside here, you've got a USB which is connecting to your computer, and you're going to use the IDS Swift software. Then you're going to tell IDS Swift software that you are using a HYYP connection. Therefore, IDS Swift is going to send the information via this module. And this information is going to be sent via the internet, via your broadband connection. In this case, it did come supplied with a Vodacom SIM card. I'm sure they've loaded up data. And this is quite an expensive product for that it's only 2 circuit boards and a little bit of transceiver software. So I think a lot of the money is built into the data, the prepaid data which they've loaded onto the SIM card. I'm not sure going forward how that works, if it's a 10-year plan, a 5-year plan, but it didn't come with any licensing or instructions. I don't even have the phone number for this card, so I'm just assuming that IDS are providing that data for me. And anyway, it's not a lot of data. We're talking like megs in terms of the software updates and things like that. All right, so what is happening is you'll be trying to connect to your panel. It will go via the broadband connection at the control unit at IDS, or whoever is offering that HYYP service for them will then connect to your panel again remotely via the standalone IP module that is connected to your panel. So what does that mean? It means that you need to know the addresses. What are the addresses? Well, that is the IME numbers. It's very important that when you do buy this product, you will see a little sticker, and you can see that I've covered mine there for obvious reasons, is that IME number allows this to have an address, and that's a unique address, and you might need that IME number if you're having to phone IDS call center for assistance. They will say, well, what is the IME number? Because then they may want to connect to this, maybe to do a software update or something like that, right? But that means you also need the IME number of the IP module that is connected at your X series panel, or at your panel. Why? Because how will you locate the panel that you're trying to configure? Well, it's got its unique address, and that's its IMEI number. All right, so now you've seen what's inside here, and I'll close it, and I'll show you how to connect this to your computer and how to do the configuring of your remote panels. Right, so what I'm doing is I'm plugging it in the USB port on my computer. It could be a laptop, it doesn't matter. Right, there is the HYYP modem. I'm now going to plug in the power connector. Right, and then you'll see a lighting sequence here, which I'll discuss shortly. Now, it's going through a boot sequence. It does take a bit of time. If it does this sequence, it means that it is booting. Give it a chance. It does take a few minutes. Right, this lighting sequence, as you can see there, 1 off, 2 on, off, on, tells me the unit is in the ready condition. When this one over here is illuminating, it means there is a connection from the HYYP modem to your cellular company. So this is something you should watch out for. When it starts to communicate, it will flicker. That's kind of your transmit receive light. Right, now in order to connect to your HYYP modem, you will need the IDS Swift 2 setup. The software I'm using is 2.2.7.44, and you will double click that and you will install it. Once it's installed, you'll get this icon, and I'm sure if you are somebody who's been doing the IDS firmware updates, you're familiar with the software. If you're not familiar with the IDS Swift software, please check out one of my videos on how to use the IDS Swift. Right, so now I'm going to double click it. Now you might be wondering why I have the task manager open at the back, and one of the reasons I do that is the IDS Swift software still has a bit of an error. Say I close it there, you see there it still stays open, and even though there is no window here for the IDS Swift, you can see that in the processes that are running, it didn't close properly. So this is a little problem that IDS have, because now when I double click it, you can see that it keeps starting new sessions without bringing me opening the window, the user interface, the GUI. So I just want to show you this because you might need to manually just end these tasks. Right, now they are ended. Now I can open the IDS Swift, and there you can see I can log in. Admin. Okay, so this is the user interface of the IDS Swift. Now what you'll need to do is preferably do a new user. Now if you already have old panels that you've connected to in the past, you can then go to one of those old panels and just change the connection type. But I'm going to do a new user, and I'm going to call this count reference test, and the client name I'm going to call this YouTube, and now it's going to say panel type. Mine happens to be a X64, the firmware version. I know the firmware version happens to be 2.71, so therefore I'm putting it 2.7X. The X means any version of the 2.7 range. Could be 2.7, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hardware version, the latest. All right, now the installer code is 4 nines. The download code is 4 nines. And this is where the difference comes in. You see it says the HYYP IMEI code. That is that specific code that identifies your IP module that is connected to your IDS control unit. It's the IMEI number of this module, the one at the panel. Now, if you've got the Wi-Fi version, that's fine. It's also got its specific, unique IMEI code. So you need to go and get that code. If you do not have this code, you will not be able to connect. Now, I already have that code and I'm going to put it in shortly. I just want to show you here the way you are connecting to your panel remotely is by HYYP connection. Now, do you remember that the direct connection, that is the one with the serial cable, which I showed earlier in the video? That means you are standing there next to the panel and with your laptop and going to configure directly to the panel. But I am not on the site where this panel is stored. I'm now going to log into it remotely. I do have the IME code. You could put in the telephone number here. I did, and it worked. It's 123456. And now I'll put in the IMEI code. Okay, so I just want to show you a possible way of managing this. Now, what I do is I've got a little table here, and maybe these are your customers. So this is Mr. Moodley. The description of his panel is an X64. You've got to have the installer code, and if it's not the default, and maybe it was changed, then you've got to have the installer code, because you need that as the authentication when you log in. And then maybe you put the physical address and then the IMEI number, which I think is a hexadecimal address. So, by the way, this is fictitious. This is just for an example. So now that I have this information, and maybe you've got other customers too at different sites, then if Mr. Moodley phones me and says, I'd like to change the properties of one of the zones, it keeps having a false alarm, then I could log in and change it from an instant zone to a follow zone or just to disable it or whatever it is. So this means that you could basically set up all your clients and remotely manage their alarm systems. However, it only works if on the client side you have that IP module, the one I showed you earlier in the video. Now I've put in the IME number, and then it's asking me what is the default template. So I'll just load that one up and I'll say create. Now what it has done is it's created a user profile for that particular site. When I say open, I can just double click the one I've just created, which is account reference test, client name YouTube. And there's the details of that panel. Now this does not mean you are connected. You see the button here which says connect is available for me to toggle. I'm not connected as yet. So now what I want to do is I say connect. Now can you see it brings up this little window here, and it asks you how do you want to connect to this panel. Are you going to be connecting directly, or are you going to be using the remote login? Now I'm going to be using the remote login. Now why does it say COM3? Alright, so do you remember that I had to plug in the USB to the computer? Now, if you have a look at the USB, can you see my ports here? I've opened up the device manager, and can you see I have IDS USB download station COM3. So Windows has already allocated that IDS modem on COM3, so it's fine. This is correct, so I do not have to change this. If you have a selection of COM ports here and you find that the connection is not working, please just go to your device manager and make sure that the IDS USB COM port is the same as the one that is available here on this window. So now I say connect, and then you can have a look now at the status update of the light. Can you see that that light is now flickering because it is trying to access the panel via the HYYP server, which is located remotely on the internet. Now, do you notice that this has changed from connect to disconnect? So that means I am now connected. But if I go to my zones, you'll see it just says zone 1, zone 2, zone 3. There's no configuration here. Why? Because you first have to receive the full coding that is on that panel in order for you to make changes. If you start making changes here and calling these zones different names and changing the state profiles and that, when you send the data, you're going to write over the original setup that that client has, and he's not going to be, or he or she's not going to be very happy with that. So press the receive button and receive the full coding. Then you'll see it says reading EEPROM, which is the same sequence of events that would have happened if you were using the direct connection. The only difference is you're connecting via the internet. Remember that I am not at this location. The place where this alarm panel is tens of kilometers away from where I am right now. I am not on that same network. And there you can see how the signal light there is oscillating, telling me that data is being transmitted and received to this little HYYP modem. Okay, so now you can see that I've connected to this panel. I've downloaded the full settings or configuration that is available at this site. And can you see the zone names are set up? Look, zone 4 happens to be linen room. Zone 5, look, these are the individual rooms of this house. Okay, never mind that. Now I can go and make changes. I can set up different state profiles, and I can do all the things which you would normally do if you were connected to the IDS panel. So this gives you the installer, or if this is just a technical person who has their own alarm system and they want to do this themselves, this is how you can connect remotely. Maybe you're on holiday and you want, and a zone keeps triggering. You can actually come here and say, you know what, I don't want this zone on anymore. I'll disable it. There we go, disable. And then what you'll then do is you will then send all the new configuration data to the panel and it will update. So that is how you connect and play around with the IDS Swift software. I'm not going to go into the details of how to use it. I have videos on that. The purpose of this video was just to get you connected. Now let's talk about some of the challenges I faced in getting this right. Although the way I present the video shows that everything just worked, that's not how it happened in real life. So now I'm going to walk you through some of the challenges which you may face. Right, I have now disconnected from this panel and I'm going to try and connect again. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to unplug and then re-plug in the modem. Right, so there we go. I'm just unplugging it and re-plugging it in. Now you can see that it's going to go through a boot sequence, which takes quite a lot of time. Now maybe you didn't wait for it and now you say connection. Can you see that it's wanting to connect, but it's going to give me an error message? There it says the HYYP destination could not be set up. Make sure the HYYP modem is connected to the computer. Lovely English. Is connected to the computer and not on the network correctly, and try again. Right, so then I'll try again and I say connect. Right, now this is an error I got frequently. It said could not authenticate with the panel. The panel did not respond in time or responded in a manner. Right, now the first reason why this may occur, you have not given the IDS modem sufficient time to run through its boot sequence. Right, you can see it's still running through its boot sequence. So can you see that I needed to wait for the modem to be in the ready condition? Right, the second reason is possibly the SIM card had no data. So what you would need to do is contact IDS and ask them to tell you why you cannot connect to your panel. Right, now this is how I had it and it still did not work. And the reason is I had to contact IDS and they told me they needed to run a software update on my IDS modem. The modem that I have here at my current place. Now that software update took about 10 minutes. So if you find that you've connected everything, the LEDs are in the correct sequence and ready for transmission. You waited for the boot sequence and you still cannot connect to your IDS site, then what you need to do is just contact the IDS call center, and maybe your IDS modem needs an update. In my case, it needed an update. It wasn't user error, it was a software update required. Once they pushed through that software update, it then worked. This is the lighting sequence during the software update, which I said took quite a long time. Now, one other bug is that when I was trying to connect to the one of my sites, it kept connecting, getting to about 70% and then cancelling. I'm not sure if that's caused because of the user also trying to connect to the panel. Maybe they've got some automation, opening and closing gates or whatever. So I'm not sure if you'll need to tell your client, look, in the time that I'm configuring the panel, please don't use your HYYP app on your phone. Because I noticed that when I was trying to set this up on my little lab site, it kept disconnecting, and I was also at that same time playing with the HYYP app. So I don't know if there was a conflict there. Now, just a notice, when you do access your client's panel, they will get a notice on their HYYP app, the app that you've installed on their mobile phone. And can you see it says there download access 11:17 today. So that's me downloading from their panel. So at least your client gets notified so that he knows, all right, the installer is busy accessing my panel. All right, so now you know how to set this up. You can now remotely configure your sites. So thanks for watching and cheers.